Welcome. My name is Brenda Borquist, and we are here to celebrate the dedication of a New York State Historic Marker in honor of Augustus Bogle, founder of this boathouse, his legacy, and this space. We can all really be extremely pleased because the award of the marker was offered to us by the William G. Pomeroy Foundation. We actually earned it. We worked hard, but they offered these markers not only in New York State, but throughout the United States. And we are really pleased and proud, and we can all be proud of this honor because this foundation is an extremely what's the word? Prestigious. There it is. Thank you. You all agree with me. Prestigious because of the attention that they pay to authentic documentation. On the sign, on our, you know, I meant to preface my remarks with this. I really did. We had no dress rehearsal for this. And so I am thanking you all in advance for your very kind understanding, okay? You know what Robert Burns said, you know that saying, best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. Well, there it is. There was one. Okay, there are 5 lines on the marker, and anything that's stated on that marker or claimed as fact has to be proven to the trustees of the Pomeroy Foundation. They have to have a document to read, to look at, to say, yes, this proves that statement. And that takes a lot of research. We made many trips up to Elizabethtown to the records room. We read through the books of deeds, and we scrolled through the tax forms. And when we first looked at the deeds, it looked like it was Old English. I mean, this was before typewriters. Typewriters really did not become popular until the late 1880s, and certainly in the outlying districts like this, probably much later. So it was all in longhand. And believe me, it was like Old English. They did write differently then. Capital letters were formed differently from what we do today. But you got the swing of it after a while with a magnifying glass and glasses and lots of light. Isn't that true, Laura? Oh, and able to understand it and get that wonderful snippet that we needed in order to prove a point that's on the marker. It is a prestigious award. And Schroon Lake and this boathouse deserves it. Okay, I have one story I have to tell you, and I'll be quick. Then we'll get on with our ceremony. Last summer, I was reaching out to organizations that use the boathouse to write a letter of endorsement that we could include in our application. And I was standing in front of Pickens, and I saw Dave Insel walking past the community church, so I said, Dave, I need you. I want to talk to you. And he came across the street, and I told him what my purpose was. We're applying for a grant to recognize the boathouse. And his response was, wow, that's great. We ought to have a celebration. So here we are. Okay. But you know, just one more thing. The enthusiasm, and the spontaneity of his remarks, that's great. That really meant something to me. That was encouragement, like, wow, it's been inside of Dave all this time that this building needs recognition. And the enthusiasm of let's have a celebration. I heard it over and over and over again. We all did, as we went through the town asking people to help in various ways. I cannot mention them all here. I know I'll forget. But on the back of your program, they're listed. And we appreciate their work so much. This boathouse is a very special space. We can be very proud of it. It is a landmark not only in Schroon Lake, not only in the Adirondacks, which it is. Thousands of people came right past here from the steamboats, onto their stagecoaches and up into the Adirondacks. But it's a very prestigious historical landmark in New York State and beyond because of the Pomeroy Foundation. This boathouse has something special, and that's why the spontaneity of that first remark, everyone that I spoke to said, yes, okay, there's something here that emanates and permeates in everyone, and it's catching. It has, there's a spirit, I call it the Schroon Lake spirit, that exists within this boathouse and emanates from it. This boathouse is an anchor for the town of Schroon to its heritage. It has been here a long time, and we hope it will be here for a long time to come. Okay, and now I would like to just welcome our students here. We have the 4th grade students from Schroon Lake Central and the 6th grade students, their teachers, Ms. Kramer and Mr. Paradis. And I thank Ms. Whalen as well as Ms. Pemrick because they were wonderful in agreeing that it's a very important thing that our young people be at ceremonies like this, and they are going to participate. And then over here, we have descendants of the Bogle family. We have great-grandchildren of Augustus Bogle, who built this building. Barbara Connor, our resident Bogle descendant, lives on Paradox Lake. And Ray, is Ray here? Resident Schroon Laker. And they are great-grandchildren of Augustus Bogle. However, Barbara and Duke's daughter is here, so she's a great-great-great-granddaughter. And their daughter is here, so we've got a 4 generation great here with the great-great-great-granddaughter of Augustus Bogle. Please stand up. Okay, thank you, wonderful. We're so happy that you all made the trip, really. And now I would like to ask the 4th grade students to stand. And could we bring that flag, Bill, just a little further out here? Yeah, I gotta slide it, kick it, push it. There we go. Great. Okay, and file up on stage here. Come on. Very good. Right here. Right here. Come on over this way. Some over here. This is all safe. Yes. Very good. Okay. Come on. Come on, everybody up here. You're being showcased today. All right. And they will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, so stand, please, and when you're ready.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you. Well done. Very well done. Be careful. Go slowly. And while they're filing back with the 6th graders, please stand up and come up on the stage. We have a few more 6th graders, so you'll just find your spot up here.
You can go in front. Right here in front. Start here. Go over this side. It's blind. Come over and touch. Come over. Right here.
Good, good. Excellent.
Right over.
Okay. Oh, go Z, huh? The sixth graders will sing for us the national anthem. So we'll stand again, please. Whenever.
No introduction? Well, we may need a pitch then. All the years, ready and go, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what surrounding we held, and the twilight's last gleaming, whose prototypes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, words of gallantry streaming, and the rockets were the bumpers singing out, give room to the night, that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? O'er the
It's okay. What a wonderful, wonderful performance that was. You know, Pete Seeger was the river keeper, Hudson River keeper. I think right over here we've got our future boathouse keepers. Yes. Give you a hand. That was wonderful. Thank you. Wonderful piece of our program today. We appreciate it. Okay, and now I'd like to introduce Meg Wood, who will say a few words.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really pleased to be here, and I'm so pleased to see... Can you hear me? Okay. I'm really pleased to be here today, and I'm really pleased to see the school children and so many local people.
Oh, Dave, are you here?
Yes, bring the mic up. There you go.
Okay. See, my mother always told me to stand tall, so now I can do it. Anyway, you have a lot of people to have many things to say, so I'm just going to thank you very much for showing your support for the Schroon-North Hudson Historical Society, which is well more than 50 years old. The first meeting I ever went to was at Hickey Kepler's house after supper one weeknight, and that's how it went. It went from house to house. But I think the perseverance, as well as the dedication to all the people who specialized in doing this project, were supported by all the other members of the Historical Society in every way that could happen, and I think they should all be acknowledged and honored. And that's it for me, because you have a long list of speakers. So, and Bill Tribo is next.
Welcome and thank you, Meg. Meg, if you don't know, is our town supervisor. So, and if you look at your program, you'll see that I am Tammy Whitty Brown. Actually, I'm not. My name is Bill Tribo, and I'm the Vice President of the Historical Society. I am here today in Tammy's stead because she was unable to make this due to some urgent family matters. So I also will be brief. Today we're celebrating the unveiling of a new historical marker honoring Augustus Bogle, his family, and this building that we are sitting in, known to all of us affectionately as the Boathouse. Other speakers to follow will talk about the history of the Boathouse and the Bogle family in Schroon. I am here simply to recognize a small group of people who really, working together, made today possible. It was not an easy task, as Brenda has alluded to, but it was for these few ladies a labor of love. It entailed several years of rigorous research and documentation, which were required before the William G. Pomeroy Foundation awarded the Schroon-North Hudson Historical Society with a fully funded grant to make this historical marker a reality. 4 ladies, all members of the Historical Society Board, all sitting on this stage with me, and known collectively and affectionately as the committee, stand out for their dedication and determination to bring this moment to fruition. And once I recognize all of them, I'd like them to just briefly stand up. They are Brenda Borquist, who we already heard from, Loris Clark, our past president, Barbara Connor, and Brenda stole my line, a great-great-granddaughter of Augustus Bogle, and Laura Dewey. Do you all stand up and give them a round of applause? Thank you. Thank you very much for your Herculean efforts in this endeavor. They really worked together and they really worked hard, and it took a long while. And as Brenda already mentioned, William G. Pomeroy Foundation is pretty tough when it comes to their standards of documentation and research. I'd also like quickly to recognize several folks, not part of the Historical Society, but who were instrumental in helping and collaborating with the committee to get this done. 2 of them are not here today, but the first is Jody Oakes. Jody is a senior research historian and grants reviewer at the Pomeroy Foundation. And Jody was the liaison between the foundation and the committee, working pretty closely with Laura Dewey. And I wanted to thank Jody for her guidance in assuring that the required documentation was gathered and that it met the high standards of the Pomeroy Foundation. Then we have Maureen Folk. Maureen is not with us today, but she is the curator of collections at the Chapman Museum in Glens Falls. Maureen provided some very valuable assistance in researching the extensive collection of Seneca Ray Stoddard period photographs that the Chapman maintains. And then, lastly, but certainly not least, we have, and she is with us today, thank you, we have Diane O'Connor. Diane is the museum director at the Hancock House Museum in Ticonderoga, now maintained by the newly named Lower Adirondack Regional Center for History. And I am told that Diane suggested, and I confirmed this with Diane, suggested very early on in this process that the committee might want to contact the Pomeroy Foundation about a marker and commemorating this family in this boathouse. They did. And the rest, as we like to say, is history. Thank you very much. And Diane?
Thank you, Bill. Before I begin to read what I'm going to read to you, I want to tell you that I carry with me today the congratulations and heartfelt best wishes from everybody on the Board of Trustees and staff at the Hancock House Museum. We understand how exacting the principles are for the Pomeroy Foundation, and you cannot stress enough. And while my professional position is in Ticonderoga, my home and my heart are here in Schroon. So treasure your historical society. They are the collective keepers of your history. And this goes especially for you young guys. Get involved, help out, volunteer, treasure what you've got. Because when you lose your history, you lose a little piece of yourselves. Now, I have here a letter sent by the Pomeroy Foundation to the powers that be here at Schroon-North Hudson Historical Society, and it reads, "Congratulations from all of us at the William G. Pomeroy Foundation on your New York State Historical Marker telling the story of Augustus Bogle and the boat livery he established at Schroon Lake in 1874. The family business expanded over the decades, with the boathouse eventually becoming the theater, a facility enjoyed to this day. At the Pomeroy Foundation, one of our main initiatives is to help people celebrate their community's history. We do this by offering grants for historic markers and plaques nationwide, as well as several other history-related initiatives, such as our National Education Program, which provides free lesson plans and guidance to teachers who work with their students to research and obtain a fully funded historical marker. We feel strongly that markers help educate the public, encourage pride of place, and promote historic tourism. I have been passionate about history since my childhood. I have fond memories of riding in the car with my father, who was a traveling salesman, and seeing historical markers that we would stop and read together. I had learned that New York State had stopped funding its marker program some time ago, leaving it to communities to raise funds on their own. And in 2005, I established the foundation and made funding markers a priority among our first initiatives. The impetus for the foundation's first marker grant program was created to fill the gap in funding. It later became the springboard for several more grant programs with a variety of themes, including our exciting new historic transportation marker program. With this New York State marker, you commemorate an important part of Schroon Lake's history. We extend our appreciation to the Schroon-North Hudson Historical Society, the Schroon Lake community, and all of those who helped make this marker a reality. We know it will help ensure your community's history, and that will be remembered for generations to come. Thank you and congratulations. Sincerely, Bill Pomeroy, founder and trustee, William G. Pomeroy Foundation. Thank you.
Okay, next is Loris Clark. Loris Clark is the town of Schroon historian, past president for 16 years of the Historical Society, and she is going to give a very early history of activity here on Schroon Lake. Okay.
Thank you. Pretty much everybody's talking, and we all have just been here and we've supported the. How's that? Is that better? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, yes. I'm going to scoot around a little bit, but yes, Historical Society president I was from 2008 until 2021. In the beginning of 2021, I became town historian also and worked with the Schroon Lake Town Supervisor, Michael Marnell. Also included was town board activities and was able to use the boathouse often for historical programs. Let's see. Also, people in Schroon and many visitors would come to the town of Schroon, and we would encourage them to come to the boathouse and other buildings and in the area, and the entertainers and the people of what Schroon Lake has to offer. And okay, that's that. I'm kind of flipping around, sorry. All right. In 2005, we were working with the Fish and Game Club. We got the Boy Scouts to help and get involved with the history in and around the town, because they have so much that they learn and everything, and it was a good group. And years ago, when people wanted to come here, which was the boathouse, when they wanted to come here, how did they get here? And you say, oh, no cars, no buses, no trucks, nothing. How did they get here? Well, I'm going to tell you how they got here. They came by train. But you say, well, there's no train in Schroon Lake. No, there's not. It would take you to North Creek. From North Creek to the shores of Schroon Lake, the water, not the town, they would come here, and they came in a horse and buggy. And then when they got here, they had boats were there to pick them up and bring them up here, and they brought them here. And then from here, people would pick them up, take them to their families. A lot of people went to the big hotels and stayed here in Schroon Lake. It was a great place to be. Schroon Lake was really, really special. And I think that was, I thought that was very interesting. Okay. Today, we are sharing the history and the boathouse and what we have gone through, and hoping that we have done, got things out there, and I really think we have. I've done to thank the group in the town. Everybody has been very, very helpful to us. At least when I asked them for something to help us with, we were able to, we got that response, and I think that's important. And so the history has meant a lot to us, of course. The lake means a lot to us. The boathouse means a lot to us, and it means a lot to us that we were able to gather today and just get its bits and pieces, but we have a lot of things at the museum, and I'd like to invite you to come there and see the stuff, see the articles and the things that were years ago. And we would love the students to come from, the school, because we have a lot of things that we can share with them too. So we're here, and please join us and come to the museum, and we'll have a good time and probably learn some things about the way it used to be. Okay? And thank you for coming today.
Okay, next is Laura Dewey, and she's going to do a chronological history of the boathouse so that we know how it came along, okay? Laura? Can you hear me? More? Ta-da! Okay, like Augustus Bogle, I was not born in Schroon Lake, but I got here as fast as I could because these ladies need help, so. If these walls could talk, and you don't know how many times I said that, they could tell us when this structure was built. Was it always on this location, or was it moved from down on the shore? Was it always used as a boathouse, or was it part of a tannery, which was right over there? And I'll speak about that in a minute. The wording on the sign that we're going to unveil shortly follows the facts. That was all we had to go on, all they would accept. 2 years of digging and unearthing 150 years of history. We looked at deeds, we looked at maps, we looked at the photographic evidence, as Mr. Tribo talked about, Seneca Ray Stoddard, big help there. And some of those pictures are over here that you can look at afterwards. Newspaper articles will provide a few little vignettes about the Bogle family that I think you'll enjoy. And there were other primary sources. But let's go back to 1870. That's where this story is going to begin. 1870, the shoreline along here did not look anything like it does today. The mill stream coming down was a source of energy and water to run 3 different things. There was a Bailey sawmill. There was Harrington and Drake flour mill. It was a grist mill. In 1869, the first steamboat arrived on Schroon Lake. And it was Charles Benedict. He had the Libby Benedict, which
was down at the bottom of the lake, but it was making runs up the lake, and that started really the visitors coming to Schroon Lake. These people that were already here were earning a living the best they could. I'm not saying anything negative about that, but a change was on the horizon. They could not sustain the hemlock trees. The hemlock trees had been stripped of their bark, and that was needed for the tanning. And they just couldn't do it. They had to be looking elsewhere for future employment, and along came the tourists. And in 1870, the larger Effingham steamboat with Captain Paris Russell allowed visitors to make their way to Schroon Lake more easily. Loris talked about the train bringing them to North Creek. They would come to the dock at the bottom of the lake, and lo and behold, they would offload right out here. And we're thinking this building was here. It had to be here at that time. But we had to prove it. The Grand Hotels, 1870, 1872, the Leland was built. We started getting these grand hotels, tourist destinations, and they were advertised in New York City. So the tourists were coming. That was going to take the place of the activity that was going on down here on the shore. In 1872, Augustus Bogle and his partner, Jonathan Brackett, they were two tanners at the time, but they knew that tanneries were closing in the Adirondacks. In her book, Hides, Hemlocks, and Adirondack History, Barbara McMartin says there was 153 in 1850, 153 tanneries. By 1880, that number had been reduced to 112. So Augustus Bogle and his partner said, all these tourists are coming. I think we ought to switch to rowboats. They started with 6. They started a boat livery down here with six rowboats. And they purchased this mill lot that went all the way along the front of from the waterfall over to here. They bought that section of land, and by 1885, they had 53 rowboats and sailing crafts. So the fleet was growing. 1874, Augustus Bogle built that house that's across the street and still sits there. He was fixing to stay. He was, and his son lived there after him, but that house still remains right on the corner up here. It's now an Airbnb, I think. Okay, so Brackett, the partner, lived in the tenement house that was right next to this sprawling tannery, and you can see what I'm talking about if you look at the pictures over there. There's a Seneca Ray Stoddard map I've labeled with where all these mills were, the tannery. It brings it all into focus. So they were living here. And 1876, we got our first map that had any actual labeling. That has Augustus Bogle's name. To the right, I guess my husband would say to the east of the steamboat landing, and Jonathan Brackett's name was to the left. Their boat liveries were actually labeled. They were on the map in 1876. So it was a big year, 1876. That big tannery I told you about burned. And when it burned up all of Brackett's boats because he was storing them in there, but Augustus Bogle must have been storing them either in here or some other location because his boats did not burn up. Yes, and it was also the year, 1876, that Jonathan Brackett's only daughter, 12 years old, died of diphtheria because there was an epidemic that went through, and it took a lot of children. It took a lot of the tannery workers that were still working in the tannery. So not a good year, 1876. Okay, we're on to 1880. This fellow, this happy-go-lucky fellow is Marcus Granger. He reminds me a lot of Dave Insel. Okay, this gentleman was a hotelier, a fiddler, and a poet, and he wrote the first guidebook for Schroon Lake. He came through here, and I'm just going to read you a little snippet that had to do with the men that we're talking about. He wrote in heroic couplets. When through the village you chance to pass, you will find boarding houses, A1 first class. Now if you wish a boat ride to take, just come with me down to the lake. There Brackett and Bogle nice boats keep, and they'll let them to you reasonably cheap. They are two as nice men as you will meet on the lake. In satisfying their patrons, much pleasure they take. So that's 1880. They'd already made a name for themselves. In 1884, Jonathan Brackett died. He was only 59, and that left his wife living in that tenement house. Well, I say tenement as like it's not a bad thing. That's what they called dwellings when they didn't know what else to call them, when they were near factories. So Jonathan Brackett died. His wife was here alone. The daughter had died. Well, she kind of gave up and went back to Massachusetts, where she came from. And that enabled in 1888 two sons of Augustus, Charles H., a.k.a. Stubb, and Lewis. They bought out Brackett's parcel of the mill lot number 2. So that meant the Bogles had sole possession of this entire area here over to the steamboat dock, from the waterfall to the steamboat landing, and then a little beyond, including all of the existing structures, and that would be this one. Boat livery business was thriving at this point, and the golden age of tourism and visitors coming to Schroon Lake was upon us. So many hotels, really A1 hotels. Augustus and his sons made improvements to their livery dock, and they worked really hard to expand their fleet of watercraft, which now included steam vessels. And one of them was called the Marietta. I found this little snippet in the Essex County Republican from October of 1899. If you come to the museum, you'll see our Pottersville Fair exhibit. And this has to do with that year, what happened one time on the way back from the fair. Remember, it's October. The excursionists who returned on the Evelyn, which is the big steamer that came in about 1880 or 1899. Well, anyway, there was a pretty new steamer at the time. The excursionists who returned from the fair on the Evelyn Friday evening had quite an exciting time of it. A violent storm of wind and rain swept through this section, and the latter half of the trip was made in inky darkness with torrents of rain. The wind tore off half of the canvas roof over the deck and broke 2 of the supports. Upon arrival, most of the excursionists remained from half an hour to an hour on board till the storm passed over. Captain Bogle's launch, the Marietta, came near being swamped, but made for the Taylors on Schroon Dock. That's down by Scarron Manor now. He made for that dock, where they tied up till all was over. And the band boys whiled away the time with music and yarns and made quite a frolic of the delay. So the band played on, even with the storm. Okay, we're up to our first Sanborn fire insurance map. You may not know what they are, but I put them over there. We had 3 of them that we had for authentic proof, and they are considered the gold standard for proving the location and existence of buildings. Well, the 1895 map shows an ice house right out here, a little ice house, and carpenter's shop, and a boat storage shed near the boathouse. But the boathouse, unfortunately, is located right down on the shore. It is at a different angle. It's hugging the shore. So the Pomeroy people would not accept that as this building, and even suggested that possibly that one burned and they built a new one here, or that one was moved up to this site. So that was a little sticky point there. 1900, the hard-working Bogles had greatly transformed their waterfront property on mill lot number 2. The larger, more modern steamboat Evelyn had replaced the retired Effingham. By the way, we have the rudder of the Effingham at the museum. Somebody fished it out of the lake after it was scuttled. Augustus's son Horace C. Bogle, a.k.a. Hod, was the last engineer of the Evelyn. And he lived up here in this house as well. So I want you to remember the sights and smells of the space along the waterfront in 1870 that I started describing, when the mill was there, the sawmill, the flour mill, and the tannery. Remember that. This is a 1900 account of what it was like here in 1900 when tourism and the big hotels, the golden age, had taken over. This is from September 7th in 1900. It's a little poetic, so permit me. To the lover of nature, what is more refreshing than a row on our beautiful lake? What more lovely than the panorama of rippling water encircled by green-clad hillsides, which rise tier upon tier and fade from purple to brightest blue? Or perhaps your gaze is directed toward the more abrupt eastern shore, and swiftly from a tall pine an eagle soars far away, kind of like today. Then clear and shrill sounds the whistle of the Marietta, or the deeper tone of the Evelyn, and behold, the boardwalk and docks take on a new activity. Scores of people are seen moving toward the dock. We watch rows of buses and carriages line up, and just as the steamer glides up to the dock, we catch sight of 3 sailboats like white gulls rounding the point of Isola Bella, the island. Then the rowboats claim our attention, some rocking idly while their occupants chat and drink in the beauties of the scene. Others, with skillful strokes, are shooting o'er the water. That's not the scene in 1870, but this is how far this area had come to 1890, sorry. Okay, we're on to 1902. Augustus Bogle dies up in his home up here after a brief illness. He was 76, and in his obituary, he's deemed a man of sterling qualities, well respected by the Schroon Lake residents. In the biographical review, he's described as a typical representative of the self-made man of this part of the country, having, through his own industry, economy, and good management, made an excellent living for himself and his family. Well, Augustus instilled these same qualities, hard work, vision, and good sense, into his sons. They were as forward-thinking and entrepreneurial as their father had been when he joined forces with Jonathan Brackett. In 1903, Charles H., Augustus's son, broke ground for the Bogle boarding house, which sat right over somewhere around where the square dancing takes place now, up on the rise. In 1903, that structure was built, it was started, and this is a description of what they offered. Attractive accommodations for 75 guests with magnificent views from spacious verandas. And then they added several smaller cottages over the next few years, one of which was called the Honeymoon Cottage. And they were all right between here and the waterfall. In 1905, Charles Bogle and Edson Clark, this shows how he liked to diversify to make a living, okay? In 1905, January, Charles Bogle and Edson Clark worked for 10 days, cutting ice, enough ice to fill every ice house in this village, the 2 of them out there on the lake. And, you know, now the lake isn't always frozen then, but they needed it for refrigeration, and they were very industrious and making money however they could here. 1906, we have another Sanborn fire insurance map, and this one will show the Bogle boarding house, the hotel where it had been built. And for the first time, this structure shows up where it is today in 1906. And I told, I think it was Bill Tribo, that circa, so everyone knows, circa is within 10 years. If you say 1900, it gives you a span to 1910 and back to 1890. That's what circa means. So we may just have to settle for circa, because the certainty is evading us at this point. Okay, 1910 was a fabulous year here at the boathouse. Charles H. purchased a new 7-passenger Packard touring sedan, right here, a touring car. I'll put this picture around so you can see it, and we have it in the museum. And now the Bogles and the boathouse went into the car livery service, along with the boat livery service. So they diversified to survive. And as soon as they got this car home, Charles's son, with Charles A., was a chauffeur, and he took Professor, pardon me if I say it wrong, Musa? Cyrus? Okay. Charles A. chauffeured Professor Musa and Francis Provenza to Elizabethtown. So they went on a little joyride, and the automobile age was here. This structure was now a garage. You can see the sign back there that we brought down from the museum. It's been in the annex. It's Stub Bogle's Garage. So the original sign is back there. 1912, we have another Sanborn fire insurance map. Hang in there, I'm getting near the end. But it is now labeled an auto garage. It's labeled an auto garage with a 500-gallon tank for gasoline just off this side of it. I don't know whether it was buried or above ground, but it was out there. Because it's a fire insurance company, and they have to label the hazards where they lie. So we've got the Bogle Boathouse now being called a garage. They sold Saucony gasoline here, and they serviced many, many cars in the early days of automobile travel. It was a really, really exciting time, and there was a lot going on down here. This is when Ann Metcalf was one of the people who supplied a letter of support for us, and it segues right into what I just spoke about, the garage being open here. This is what Ann Metcalf supplied for us. I was born in 1932 and grew up in our home up the street from the boathouse where Roger Friedman lives, right up there. My parents, Dr. John Breen and Marie Cheney Breen, were friends with Charlie Bogle, who ran an auto and boat service business in the boathouse. Sometimes when loud noises would come from that direction, they would joke that, "Oh, Charlie has a lot of business today." Many years later, in the 1960s, the boathouse was the site of classical music concerts. One evening, Mother hosted a reception in our house for the famed cellist Janos Starker. We were very pleased to have the boathouse used for these excellent concerts. And we have the sign that used to be out front, out over the door out there, right there for the Boathouse Theater on display as well. All right, that brings us up to 1913. Oh, this was a good year too. Have you ever candy out? So a trained raccoon that looked like a bandit. Picture it. My aunt also told me there in his autobiography, W.C. Fields refers to my good friend Charlie Bogle. I guess that's because my grandfather always kept him supplied with booze. I can't verify any of that, folks, okay? All right, sadly, well, no, one more good thing. In 1935, this will make you proud, Bogle descendants. This was off of Facebook today when they knew what was happening. I wish I knew the person who posted it, but this is from the short-lived Schroon Lake Press, and the date is August 23rd, 1923. Okay, never before accomplished. It's short. Swimming the entire length of Schroon Lake, a distance of 9 miles, is the ambition of Miss Violet Bogle, sturdily built, stamina-endowed daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Charles A. Bogle. There are no records on hand showing that this feat has ever been done before. It has never been, don't know if it's been accomplished by either a male or a female. They say natator, natador. I'm going to say swimmer. Okay, before Miss Bogle, at present in superb physical condition, supplemented by daily workouts, can undertake this grueling marathon test, parental permission is necessary. She was 17 at the time. I don't know, do you know that she made that swim or not? Okay. I couldn't find a follow-up article, I'm sorry, to know if she did it or not, but that was her goal. Sadly, in 1936, Charles Augustus Bogle, younger than his father, died at age 47. Followed by 1938, his father, Charles H. Bogle, died at 78, and this was devastating to the Bogle presence here in Schroon Lake. In 1942, Charles W. Bogle released the entirety of the Bogle property to Leon and Wilma Silbert, thus ending the Bogle reign. The Silberts owned it until 1954. And the boathouse had you may not know, it had a rear stairway that came up along the back. And while it was Silberts, I personally know someone who rented a room up there that was working at Silberts. So there was somewhat of lodging going on upstairs in the rooms up there when Silberts owned it. Okay, in 1954, Wilma Silbert sold the property to Julius and Ida Ritter. The boathouse became a concert and cultural venue with Elliot Ritter, their son, as the director of the Boathouse Theater. It was known for its wonderful acoustics, and it still is. 1975, the estate of Julius Ritter sold the property and all its buildings to the town of Schroon, with the stipulation, and after a hard and long fight, which I'm not going to talk about, but someone who actually lived it will, the stipulation was that the boathouse would be preserved. The other buildings were not required to be preserved, but the boathouse was. And thank goodness they honored that, or we wouldn't be here today celebrating this. So I've given you the chronology of the history of the boathouse and how the lives of Augustus Bogle and his family intersected with this history. And this boathouse witnessed all of this. Man, if these walls could talk. The boathouse is anchored, thank you. The boathouse has anchored Schroon Lake to its history for over 150 years. The Bogles were good stewards of this boathouse for 66 of those years. The town of Schroon will surpass this milestone in the year 2041. The enthusiasm of this gathering today gives me every reason to believe that it will still be here when the town claims the prize. Now, I presented the facts as we were able to uncover them. It's up to our other speakers today to give you their feelings and their memories about the interim between when the Bogles owned the property and it was passed on to other individuals, because they know a lot more about it than I do, and it's a very personal thing with them. So thank you for your patience. I realize this took a long time, but hey, it's 150 years.
Okay, our next three speakers talk about that controversy that Laura alluded to, and it's called Saving the Boathouse. And these people are responsible for saving it so that we are here today. We have Lil Richardson, Lisa Reed, and Roger, what's your name again? Roger Friedman. Lisa, would you like to come up first? Very good.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes. Good. Well, it's a personal story, really. My husband first came here in the early 1960s into the cabin colony on Paradox Lake and rented twice, I think, the cottages there. Then he bought a cottage in 1968, very simple place, And I came here in 1971, and we fixed it up and came every weekend from New York City and all vacation times, whenever we had vacation. And in the early 70s, I think, well, Elliot Ritter married Edna Mitchell at one time, and she was a violinist, she organized classical concerts, a lot of string quartets, piano concerts, and we used to go to most of them when we could. And I have an old program here from 1979 where it shows up every month. She had a nice concert, and my husband supported Edna Mitchell so she could continue with those concerts. And I think it was apparently in 1975, from what I just heard, that the town took over the boathouse and it needed restoration. It was apparently in bad shape. And they didn't have the funds for it, and it was proposed to tear it down because it was too dangerous to continue using it. So at that time, from what I remember, Mo Friedman was my husband's lawyer, and he called my husband and he said, we really need something to be done about that, otherwise we will lose the boathouse. And both I and my husband, we loved coming here for the concerts, so he asked my husband to help, and he donated funds, about $20,000 worth, to build a new roof and save the boathouse. And he said, but please don't use my name, I want to be anonymous. But he always did that when he gave money. So in the end, he became Mr. Anonymous. But anyway, the boathouse was saved, and we continued having concerts, including some Siegel concerts. I'm now supporting Siegel a lot, so that really was helpful. And we had storytelling, we had folk dancing, we had folk music, we had jazz concerts here in the 70s and 80s. Then my husband died in 2001 of a stroke, and for a few years I didn't do much, but then I came to the concerts again here in the boathouse, and I looked on the wall and I saw a lot of different plaques saying, oh, we donated a chair, we donated a table, we donated that. And I said, nobody remembered Mo Friedman and my husband. No. So I went to the supervisor at the time and asked what can be done. So they put the plaque up and it showed my husband's name, and including Mo Friedman, people who saved the boathouse. And that's my story.
Okay, next we have a team.
We have a team.
A team. Lil Richardson and Roger Friedman.
I don't
Now
know
I'm
if
bring you the
one-
story of saving the boathouse.
What Lisa said was basically the big reveal, because the donation was anonymous. Back in 1970-something, my brother and I were sworn to secrecy. Until one day, not that long ago, Lisa said, you can use his name now. And I'm here with Lil Richardson. She's one of my mentors and heroes. And it's 50 years ago, Lil, and there's not many of that group left today, was one of those that supported Save the Boathouse. And when Lil puts her mind to something, you don't run interference, you get out of her way. So anytime Anytime Lil wants to speak, she's going to ring the bell.
I want to say it soon so you'll have it in your mind. I had a husband who was on the town board, and he had a father who was on the town board. And when it came up for what they're going to do with this building, after they had purchased the others and gotten rid of the hotel and what have you, there was a little difference in opinion. And come to find out, it was a difference of opinion in my house. Because Arthur, my husband, who was on the board, wanted it taken down. It was going to cost too much money, you don't use it for anything, we don't need it. And Roger's father, Mr. Wonderful, he came out and said, no, we're not going to do that. Well, a long time later, after many sessions, we won. And my husband didn't like it much until maybe I would say a year or two later, when it had blossomed and was being used and it had come out to be something so special. He said, I'm sorry, you were right and I was wrong. I wanted to put that down in paper. Now I'll let Roger tell you his good story.
Thanks, Lil. Where Laura left off, and if you want to come back, Lil, just ring the bell. The Ritters, who renovated the old livery into the Boathouse Theater, which in the early 1960s was a setting for high-quality classical music. That's what we grew up on in those days. Chamber music in the Boathouse, and Wednesday night square dancing with Tex on the old tennis court in the park. In 1999, my father wrote The Preservation of the Boathouse, as recalled by Mo Friedman. Much has been written about the boathouse, however, this story is not widely known. During the time of the world-renowned Israeli violinist Edna Michel's Cantilena Players concerts in the Boathouse, the acoustics of the building were touted by some of the world's best musicians as an acoustic masterpiece which cannot be duplicated. By the way, Edna Michel was the Ritter's daughter-in-law married to their son, Elliot. In 1975, the Ritter property, as mentioned, was sold to the town, which basically included everything from the boat launch over to, again, the town tennis court. That was the original tennis court in the town. A lot of people considered the boathouse to be an eyesore. It was definitely in need of a lot of repairs. Those people were not interested in highbrow classical music, and there was pressure by them to tear the building down. The town board had to make a decision. On the town board were Art Richardson, Clara Frenger, Rocky Clark, Supervisor John Kelly, and my father, Mo Friedman. The board lined up for destruction, Art Richardson, Rocky Clark. To preserve, Clara Frenger, Mo Friedman. Supervisor Kelly was basically for destruction, but challenged my father to raise the money for rehabilitating the building. A total estimated at the time about $36,000. If this, Supervisor Kelly said, if this effort was successful, he would vote for preserving it and use $5,000 in surplus town funds for the boathouse. My father enlisted the help of Charles Millard to raise the money. Again, Charles Millard, long gone, great person. The Schroon Lake Association through the members raised $4,000 plus. And the boost came, as Lisa had mentioned, an anonymous contribution for approximately $20,000. A benefit concert featuring Schroon property owners, Patrice Munsell, the youngest performer to perform in the Met, and Bob Bill Wright from Man of La Mancha, filled the boathouse to overflowing, and it was a great success. The comment was made that admission was only a $5 donation, and it should have been more. At this point, John Kelly voted yes. The town had put in $5,000. Charles Millard and my father continued to raise money. A lot of materials, including the hardwood flooring for the stage, were donated by Dick Drake of Drake Lumber. Paul Creer was hired as the contractor, and the boathouse was saved and renovated. Many opponents of saving the building in later years, including Art Richardson, admitted it was a good move. Lil also spearheaded a volunteer committee to solicit donations to maintain and improve the boathouse. Today, the boathouse, used for many, many, many things, is regarded as a valuable and historical town treasure, and I just have to say, our Historical Society rocks, because without them, we wouldn't be here today.
Okay, we have to move along a little bit here, and because our students have to get back to school, we don't want you to miss the unveiling that's coming up. But I do want to take a moment here. Is Sue Conroy here?
I'm here.
Oh, would you stand up and just give that quick story you told me the other day?
Sure.
Oh, it's a charming story.
You heard about the Edna Michelle. Well, she needed somebody in the community to knock on doors and raise money. So being a music teacher and a longtime resident since the 40s, right over there, I started knocking on doors. And I knocked on anybody that I thought would buy a season subscription. So Word of Life did that, the liquor store did that, the Winters did that, a whole bunch of people. And I gave all those full-time season tickets to our dear Vic Organic, who was the longtime music teacher here. How many of you knew Vic Organic? Oh, good. I tried to get a hold of his family today, but I couldn't. And he gave those tickets to kids in the school. How many of you play an instrument or sing? Look at the hands. Good job. So, he gave those tickets to kids who went to the concerts that Roger so eloquently spoke about, and Lisa as well. And some of those kids went on to serious music because they sat in this building and listened to famous artists like the Concord String Quartet and all the rest. And so one of those was Debbie Schufelt. How many of you remember Debbie? There's a bunch of hands. Who went to Juilliard School of Music, one of the finest music schools in the world. And she came from the Schroon Lake Public School Orchestra. They didn't have a band, they had an orchestra playing what's a little bit bigger than a violin. Well, you gotta sit down for that. Viola, thank you. She played viola in the Schroon Lake Orchestra, went to Juilliard, and has been teaching the Suzuki string program there for a long, long time. So coming from Schroon Lake, you guys, you can go to the world and enjoy music and add a lot. Thank you for being here and adding your time.
Okay, Darren and Barbara, we're getting there, but I do want to take a couple of minutes and talk to our students because I have a question for you. You know, our museum that we talk about, the Schroon-North Hudson Museum, is just across the street from your school and up the road a little ways. And in that museum, what do we do there? We collect, well, actually, we collect old things. We collect old things that people in Schroon Lake used in their everyday life 100 years ago or 125 years ago. But when they come into the museum, they're not old things anymore. They're given a really fancy name. And that name is artifact. They become an artifact. That's like a treasure that is protected, that's taken care of, and is preserved. And that is the job of our museum, is to protect, preserve for the generations and the people of the future, for all of you. And it was that time for all of us. Now, when we look at this boathouse, this is kind of like an artifact. I think there should be a name for old buildings like this, but the only thing I could find was old building. So we could give it a name. We could call it an artifact, architecture fact. But anyway, I doubt if when Augustus Bogle built this boathouse, that he said, fine boathouse here for the people of tomorrow, generations to come. He didn't. He just needed to have his boats covered and a place to repair them. And we can think of it as an artifact, but you know, in a museum, you can't touch artifacts. That's a rule. You go with hands in the pockets or hands behind your back. You can't touch artifacts. They're too fragile because they're so old. But think about this artifact. We can walk right inside. We can come right inside and look around, and you can feel the history here. Look at over here. This whole building here, the bottom half is stone. It's a stone wall. It's like the earth. It's like part of the earth. Look at up here. Look at these poles, these trees actually up here. They still have the bark on them. They look like perhaps they were used for, what do you think? It's a boathouse. What do you think? A boat rack. Okay? Now, Augustus Bogle, he created, and my question to you is, all of you, are you interested in creating a little piece of history?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, look at that. See, that's what I mean. That's a Schroon Lake spirit. There it is, right there. Yes, immediately. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. You've got a 3x5, the teacher passed out a 3x5 card. Did you do it? You got them? Here's the deal. You put your name on that 3x5 card and today's date.
What is that?
June 14th, 2024. And then, on the front of it, when you get a chance, so why don't you pay attention to the rest of the program? When you get a chance, fill the front of that card with your experience here today. Maybe you learned something new. Maybe you have a different idea about history. When you feel history, it helps you to understand it a lot better. So you fill those cards, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Teachers are going to collect them. I will get them from them. I will take them to the museum. I'm going to put them in an album. First of all, I'm going to read them because that really, I can't wait to do that. I'm going to put them in an album. And what happens to things when they come into the museum, they become artifacts, and your notes and your messages will be artifacts in our museum. They're actually documents. They will be kept so that you can come in this summer and you can open the book and find out the note that you wrote. And you can come in 25 years from now, in 2049, and you will be able to find that book and look at the message that you wrote today. Is it still yes?
Yes.
It's a deal?
Yes.
Okay. I can't wait to read them. And now, thank you. Thanks. They're a wonderful group of children there. Wonderful. Now I want to introduce Darren Woods, who has a terrific story and an announcement.
Announcement. I feel like that guy that's come late to the party and everybody wants to go home. I do want to say that what I think is important about today and what we're all here is this building connects the community. When I was hired 29 years ago, believe it or not, at Siegel, Mo Friedman was on the committee that hired me, and we had 2 seasons, and I really had a dream of having a children's opera program here. And I would go down, remember the booth that was on the corner where the Chamber of Commerce was back then? And Lil would volunteer there, and she was also on the board. And so I said to her, I really want to have a children's opera program. And she said, and I said, I'd like to do it somewhere in town. It just doesn't feel right up on the hill. And she said, let me show you where that needs to be. And we walked in this door, and that was in 1997. And while I was talking to Richard Kagi over the year, I thought, well, want to have an opening concert where we can get the community involved. And that was when Old Friends and New was born. And so we started that concert. And those first 3 years that we had that here, we invited the high school choir to sing. So Siegel Festival and the high school choir were singing together in the very boathouse. And the only anecdotal thing I'll tell you is the reason we stopped doing Old Friends and News in the boathouse is one night we had so many people crammed in here that someone said to Dick McManus, wow, you have a really big crowd. He says, yes, Darren set a fire on the eastern shore so the fire marshal wouldn't come in here and see who all was here. So we realized we'd grown a little bit big for the boathouse, but we still, to this day, have children's opera here. And if you want to see it live and in living color on July 8th, we'll be doing a Dragon's Breath right here in the boathouse, free. So bring your kids, your grandkids, and come see us there. But thank you, Lil, for introducing me to the boathouse all those many years ago.
Okay. Our last speaker is Joe Travancha. And Joe was kind enough to record a message for us, and Barbara is going to turn her phone on and listen to Joe. Joe was the historian of North Hudson for many years and was the county clerk up in Elizabethtown for even more. Okay.
And that's it after that, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm lowering it. Let's see. Am I doing this right? Okay. Okay. Yeah, gotta turn it on. I gotta turn it on first. Yeah, we went up to, okay. We went up to interview him. Wasn't going on. I hope I did. I hope so. No. No. I did this perfectly the other day. It's, now it is. Yes, I'm trying to
play this.
Yes. Oh, here we go. That's what I need.
This is it?
This is it. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. My name is Joe Travancha.
Thank you.
And it's good to be here via the recorder. I'd like to congratulate the Historic Society on all their work that they've done in giving this old building the designation that it deserves. Think about the old building as something that at one time witnessed boats and watercrafts of all different kinds and colors, to the time now where it's become a place of a gathering place for concerts, birthday parties, and everything you can imagine. It's become a centerpiece in the town. For years, there's been a certain group within the town that didn't want to put any money into it. Said let it fall down or tear it down. But thank goodness it persevered. The old walls were not going to fall down for anybody. And I'd like to congratulate everybody on getting the designation that it got from the state register. And I hope that it lasts for another 150 years. I remember my niece had her after graduation party, and what fun we had there. And I wish you all the best for more fun to happen, for more cultural events to happen. Thank you.
All right. And I think that's it, right? You can hold this up. You can hold it like that. Yes. Well, everybody said everything, so I don't really have to now.
All right. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3.
Stand up. Every year, 1870. Continued by some girls, auto delivery added circa 19. Okay, one, teeth. Teeth.